the boys in blue. We have to support our boys in blue. The postal service workers, not the police. The postal service workers. They help the country run. Now these people are the ones actively pushing for a better society just by delivering the mail. I see the mailman, I see the mail woman, I see the mail they, because they may be non-binary. I don't want to assume, you know. These people help the country run like no others. The USPS links together the most disparate parts of our country, the most out there places to get what people need at the lowest possible price. The USPS puts through more mail in 3 months than UPS and FedEx do combined for a year. I only ship my mail through USPS. USPS is the only mail that I trust. And for a lot of people around this country, USPS is the only mail provider that they'll ever trust. And sadly, Donald Trump and his latent fascism is doing the best that he can to absolutely destroy the USPS. Oh no, stop. I'm getting to it. Trying to destroy USPS in all that it's worth to try to give himself better re-election chances. And don't believe me, because Donald Trump on Fox News, he had another disastrous, like completely baffling Fox News interview where he talked about what he really believes when it comes to funding the USPS. We can hop right into it. Oh my gosh. Wait, is that coming through my... Wait. Oh my gosh, why is that coming... Oh my gosh. Wait, why is that coming through my headset? Wait a second. Why is everything falling apart? Holy crap, everything is falling apart here. Turn this up. Turn this back. I have personal experiences where my mom haven't gotten her medication. Yep. We'll get right into that in just a second.
They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes. Okay, universal mail-in ballots. $3.5 trillion. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now they need that money in order to have the post office work, so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just 2 items. But if they don't get those 2 items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting. They want 3.
Yep. So there it is. He said it. He can say it himself. I don't have to say it for you. So Donald Trump is holding up millions of dollars. Well, actually, I think it's 25 billion if I remember correctly. Yeah, I believe it's 25 billion. Yeah. So what happened was, what he's talking about is that the House of Representatives passed a bill, a funding bill for the USPS that gave $25 billion for its operations through 2020 to help out with the election. Okay. Trump is not playing ball with it. He doesn't want it. It was passed bipartisanly by the Senate. It was just recently passed by the House, and Trump is blocking it to make sure it doesn't go through. Why? He said it himself. It will help with mail-in voting. That's the last thing that he wants, is for mail-in voting. He's trying to use mail-in voting as a toy to get as little people as possible to vote. He is actively trying to destroy the USPS in an effort to make his re-election chances better, because we all know when voter turnout is low, Republicans usually win, and he's on the Republican ticket. It makes perfect sense to try and do it. The problem is that there are lots of other unintended consequences that are coming from this. We'll get into that in just a second, but what I want to see is his best boy, Larry Kudlow, a White House advisor, talking to CNBC about what he thinks about mail-in voting and what he thinks about what the Democrats are trying to do. Let's hop into this. Let's hear what he has to say.
So much of the Democratic asks are really liberal left wish lists. We don't want to have voting rights and aid to aliens and so forth. That's not our game, and the president can't accept that kind of deal.
So They're just out with it now. They're just completely out with it now. Voting rights, civil rights, getting people to vote. And that's just not our game. It's a game. That's civil rights, voting rights. That's a game to them. See, I think voting is a human right. They do that in Europe. Voting is a fundamental human right to have to be a part of the democratic process of the country that you live in. That should be a fundamental human right afforded to all people living within this, in the borders of said state. But these people, it's a game to them. Not only is it a game, it's not their game. Voting rights are under attack in this country, and Trump's doing it on the back to try to make himself more popular and to make himself president for as long as humanly possible. And the Postal Service, even the agency itself, has to warn, because of all of these things happening, because of all of these backups, that some states, because of their mail-in vote deadlines, because of their absentee ballot deadlines provided to them, imposed onto their constituents. Because of this, it makes it almost impossible and almost a certainty that some votes are going to come in by the deadline that won't make it by the time of the election. So this has already had an effect that the USPS is telling the entire country that, hey, you guys need to start looking at your deadlines, because when this cutoff happens, we won't be able to get your mail. Ballots are just going to be lost, thrown away into the trash. Trump was already before this in court using his millions of dollars from his campaign money to go to court with a lot of states. And he said it himself. He's going to court with a lot of states to try to get them to stop from making mail-in ballots more accessible. He's trying to make it so that you have to have a very specific reason, that you can't just afford mail-in ballots to everyone, because he wants to make sure that as little people vote as possible, because his approval rating, because his polling looks so dismal. He knows what he has to do now is make it so difficult for people to vote, make so many things get thrown away, especially in these high density areas where lots of Democrats are, that he could swing the election. And it's honestly starting to look like he can. And we can see, and one thing that the USPS is starting to do is they were seen destroying mail sorting machines. They were destroying mailboxes. They've started to pick up random mailboxes. Well, not random. My bad. They started to pick up mailboxes from around the state to try to lower the amount of mail volume that they can take. They've lowered their mail capacity by millions of units of mail over the last couple of weeks. And also, thank you, Mick Grady, for the follow. I really appreciate that. This article, this graphic from the Washington Post shows you, and so we see big dark red circle, big thick dark red circle. This is a reduction in their sorting capacity by 300,000 or more. So where do we see that? Los Angeles. We see that in Houston, to make sure that so big places like in Houston, Texas, that's going to be an noticeable change, and lots of other places as well. They get shut down by 200 to 300,000 here. So what is this like 200,000, 200,000, 600,000, my bad. Whoop, I can't count. 400,000, 600,000, 300,000. So we're looking at almost a million, I can't speak. Almost a million pieces of mail reduction in sorting capacity in Texas alone. The Rust Belt is seeing a really big drops. Philadelphia itself, 300,000 pieces per mail per hour in reduction. In Pontiac, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the Rust Belt, Ohio as well, Columbus, I'm pretty sure, 327,000. New York, 324,000. They're picking up mailboxes everywhere to try to make sure that they can reduce their capacity to sort mail, to make it as difficult as possible, to make sure that as many ballots as possible will fall below the threshold that a lot of states will set for when the ballot arrives in the sorting facility to be genuinely counted to swing the election for Trump. This is disgusting. and they're even stopping. They're even like throwing away mail sorting machines. These USPS mail sorting machines cost millions of dollars, and they're just deactivating them. They're even destroying some. Some reports say they're being destroyed, and I would say that this is unprecedented, but sadly I cannot say that. This is merely Republican state maneuvers spread to the general election, spread to across the country. Okay, this is not anything new. We've seen this before in Georgia. I kept up in Georgia in 2018, where he shut down polling places. Where I live in Kentucky, they shut down polling places where there was only about 2 or 3 polling. My bad. I think it was like 1 polling place for 800,000 people in the country, in the state. They shut down polling places everywhere to make sure that lines were as long as possible. They shut people out who were standing in line when as soon as like 8 p.m. rolled around, the cutoff. They had to go to court to make sure that what people when they were standing in line, they kept the doors open so they could do this. This is not anything new. Brian Kemp down in Georgia shut down polling places in poor communities, in majority black communities. He deactivated voting machines. He did crazy amounts of voter disenfranchisement. He was booting people from the voter rolls. This is not anything new. The problem is now we're just not seeing this at a local level. We're seeing this at a statewide level, and it's coming through from the USPS, and he's going to use it to try to keep himself in power. This is disgusting. I think this is one of the biggest, for me, one of the biggest attacks on our freedom as possible. Making it so that, making it almost impossible for some people to vote, being in court to try to stop people from voting. The massive amounts of civil rights violations that are happening right now is insane. Like if this was happening in like some Middle Eastern country, if this was happening in some Latin American country, freaking the entire Congress would be down in like sending in the troops to go coup that country. This is insane that this is happening. And this is like third world country levels of voter disenfranchisement that we haven't seen on a national level, I don't think, like almost ever. And Trump using his money out, and this means so much that Trump is shoveling money out of his personal like war coffers, his war chest for his campaign. He's pulling back ads from the Rust Belt because the hope is he won't need them anymore. He'll just make it so hard for people to vote that it'll swing the election for him anyways. This is incredible to me. That on top of him like going against free speech with being in court, shoveling more money through lawsuits to try and make it so that publications, like local publications that make like bad bad publications about him, he's trying to take them to court for libel. This is just the attacks on our First Amendment rights, the attack on our on the right to have our voices heard through like a free and fair election is just like this has not been seen in like I don't think anywhere in like modern countries. Dude, this is literally the meme of like America being a third world country with a Gucci belt. This is like the biggest attack on civil rights that I think that I've seen, especially from like this president. That, and like on top of like the black bagging protesters, I can't see how having this person stay in office for any longer than any amount of time is anything preferable to anybody who cares about civil rights in this country. He has to get out of office. We have to vote. What we have to do is make sure that we overwhelm the system enough to where the ballots that won't make it won't matter as much, because we can overwhelm it to make sure that he won't stay in office. This is voter fraud. This is the voter fraud that he's been talking about. It's been coming from the right, and it's been coming down hard.